What is up, and welcome back to another episode of the Wizards podcast. I'm your host, Greg Finberg. In today's episode, I'm going to be giving my Washington Wizards 2025-26 season preview. The time is finally here. I can't tell you the countless pods I've done throughout the summer where I'm like, I just wish that I could talk about a game. I wish I couldn't, I don't have to come up with random content ideas because it's way more fun when the team's actually playing, when all the speculation, all the predictions, all the talk can kind of move to the side and you can actually get to see everything that's went into putting this roster together for this season. You got a lot of young guys that are going to come out here hungry to prove themselves. You got a rookie class, three rookies this year. Last year, it was also three rookies. You traded for Dylan Jones. You traded for AJ Johnson, so it was five total at a certain point. But you have young guys ready to prove themselves. Bilal Coulibaly, Cam Whitmore, year three guys that are contract extension eligible next October. It's a really big season for them. You have veterans on this team like McCollum and Middleton that might get dealt, that might not. They're getting paid a lot, so we'll see if they can get dealt. And you got a team that's young, that's hungry, that's probably not going to win a lot more games than they did last year, but certainly is probably the best roster that we've seen of these 3 years of the Wizards rebuild. So I'm going to give you my best breakdown of the team. Hopefully, you leave this episode with a lot of knowledge, as much knowledge as you need for Wednesday's opener at Milwaukee and beyond to kind of get ready, get situated for this upcoming season. Also, shout out to Marymount Basketball. I'm wearing my hoodie. My brother is a GA there. A lot of you listeners are probably in the DMV, so Marymount starting their season pretty soon. Go out and support. But I'm going to get into the episode now because that's what you guys are all here for. And I want to start with a roster outlook. By the time I'm recording this, which is Monday, 5 p.m. Monday, October 20th, is when the final roster for teams was due. Teams have a max of 15 standard NBA contracts and also three two-way contracts. And the Wizards finalized theirs on Monday. They had a spot that they needed to waive. They had 16 standard guys at the beginning of the day, and they decided to waive Dylan Jones. I talked at length about this on my previous pod. It really seemed like a two horse race between Malachi Branham and Dylan Jones, two guys that Will Dawkins acquired in the offseason, mainly to get picks, but also got guys like them that are good. They're still young, and it was, from all accounts, from what I've heard, a really close battle in camp. That's what the Washington Post, the Athletic, the Monumental said. So it's clear that it wasn't an easy decision, but it eventually turned out to be Branham. And look, I heard I had a lot of people saying Gill might get waived. I thought that maybe it was possible, but pretty unlikely. And I had always maintained it was going to be either Branham or Jones. They decided they liked Branham a little bit more. I'm sure Jones will sign a two-way contract or a standard contract. He's only in his second season. He's a former first-round pick. Just didn't work out on an OKC team that just didn't have enough roster space, to be honest. They're unbelievable, best team in the league, so makes sense. But Jones will find his footing. He was solid at times. Obviously, I understand why they cut him. Wasn't as consistent maybe as he needed to be, especially on offense. But nonetheless, wishing him the best success. But that means that the roster is final. Branham has made the roster. And so here's kind of an outlook. I'm going to separate it into guards, wings, forwards, and two-way guys. The guard rotation: Bub Garrington, CJ McCollum, Trey Johnson, AJ Johnson, and Malachi Branham. You're going to see Bub Carrington start. I don't know if he'll be ready for opening night. Like Brian Keefe said, we will have to see when asked about his status. But considering that Bub couldn't put any weight on his left knee and had to sort of be helped off the court, didn't look like a great scene. For him to like possibly be ready for Wednesday is very good in and of itself. So maybe he misses that game, but they have another game on Friday against Dallas, and they come to the home opener against Charlotte. So maybe they just sit him for the road trip and he returns. Who knows? But it's nice to be back. He's going to be the everyday starter. At point guard, has had his ups and downs, especially if you watched him in Summer League in the first preseason game. He's still 20 years old. He's still learning a new position in being an everyday point guard. He's learning how to make certain reads. So I would stress patience with Bub. But one thing's for certain, he's going to get opportunities. He played all 82 last year, led all rookies in minutes. He's going to play a lot. So bear with Bum. He's going to get better as time goes on. Might not be perfect early on, but I would just stress some patience there. Hill starting the backcourt alongside CJ McCollum, who I believe is entering his 13th season in the league. He is also one of the only guys I believe from the last couple years that has averaged 20 plus points per game in 10 straight seasons. Like that's a pretty crazy feat. He's always been a solid scorer, has added a, on ball duties. I think Bub is the point guard, but I wouldn't be surprised if CJ ran some possessions offensively. I showcased he could do that, toward the end of his time in Portland, did it with New Orleans. He's just so solid. He's as solid as they come. He's going to be a consistent scorer for this team. Take some of the stress and the burden off Bub in terms of his shot creation. So I'm excited to see what he can do in that backcourt. He was phenomenal. I think he averaged, 17 plus 60. He averaged 18 in 2 preseason games and on really good shooting splits, 5 and 9 from 3 in that last game he played in Detroit. So really excited to see what CJ can do. He's obviously a trade piece. We'll talk about that later. But he's going to be in the backcourt with Bub. Backing him up is Trey Johnson, who I think will be the only other guard in the rotation for Keith, the only other guard that I list here as a guard, at least in the rotation. I'm very excited. If you've listened to this pod for literally any episode this summer, Trey Johnson was number 3 on my draft board. The Wizards got him at 6. He was 3 for a reason. His ability to score the ball led all freshmen with nearly 20 points per game last year at Texas in scoring. Shot nearly 40% on nearly 7 attempts per game at Texas, which is again is phenomenal. His shooting stroke is pure. You saw it, with a couple of transition threes in preseason. He can come off pin downs. He can shoot from the corner, from the wing, from the top of the key. And he's more than just a shooter, obviously, but that's the part of his game I'm looking at most. People have compared him to Ray Allen, the way he shoots, the elevation he gets when he shoots. It makes sense to see that comparison, but I'm very excited to see what he can do. I think he's the second best odds to win Rookie of the Year. Obviously, Flag will probably win if he stays healthy. He's phenomenal. But to see that your 6th overall pick is already getting that type of buzz, that's certainly good coming into the season. So I do expect him to flash offensively, and I do think, like you saw with Keyshawn and Sarr and Bub, and like you see with most rookies, it'll probably take Trey a little bit of time to get acclimated to the physicality and to the new style of play in the NBA. But I think you'll see as the year goes on, he's just going to continue to get more comfortable, especially from the 3-point line, and really excited to see what he can do. So I think he'll be the only guard in that rotation. AJ Johnson, Malachi Branham. Johnson's back. Brian Keefe said he was cleared. He'll be ready for the season opener. I doubt he'll play in his return to Milwaukee. I just think there's a lot better wings on this team and guards on this team to where I don't think Johnson really cracks that even top 10, 11 on this team. I'd play guys like Riley and Champagnie over him. So I think he won't feature early, but who knows? Maybe as the season goes on, if McCollum is dealt, if Middleton's dealt, if some other moves are made, Johnson can feature towards the end like he did last year after the deadline. And then obviously you got Branham. He's kind of that 14th, 15th man alongside Gill on this team. He's good. Like, I really liked Branham coming out of Notre Dame. I thought when he played early on, when the Spurs were bad, he was solid some nights. And, I like him as a player. He's not going to play pretty much at all unless it's garbage time for the Wizards at the beginning of the season, maybe the entire season. But good for him. He obviously was in a heated camp battle with Jones. He won out. Clearly had a good camp. So, shout out to Branham. Maybe we'll see what he can do at some point. So that's the guard rotation. Moving on to the wings. My friend Ben Strober loves to make comments about the amount of wings on this team. I don't know if he called it Wingstop or if someone else did, but they have a lot of wings. And that's the work of Will Dawkins. He clearly has a type. He likes wings, basically guys that can play guard, can play forward, are fast, are athletic, but also have the size to body up on defense, to be able to get to the rim. It's kind of the archetype that he clearly likes. He drafted a lot of them too. He drafted Bilal, he drafted George, he drafted Will Riley, brought in Whitmore. So he clearly likes these wing type players. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The wings on this team: Chris Middleton, Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, Justin Champagnie, Corey Kispert, Will Riley, and Cam Whitmore. That's a lot of wings, right? I believe it is 7 I count right here. It's a lot. It's a lot on a team. Usually you see more balance between them, the guards, and the forwards/centers. This is a very wing-heavy team. I believe Chris Middleton will start at the 3 spot. I think Keyshawn George to begin the season, of course, will start. Chris Middleton will start at the 4. George will start at the 3. I think I'm most excited about George for this season. I've raved about him ever since the Wizards drafted him because it was a guy with a really high floor. His ceiling might not have been as high as some of the prospects in his range, but I just love the pick because I was like, there's no way this can go wrong. Like this guy is going to be solid. He's way better than solid already. I'm not going to come out here and say he's an elite defender just yet. I'm not going to come out here and say he's elite 3 and D guy just yet because he has a long ways to go. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But from what we've seen, right, the defense is there. Like it's not elite yet, but it's really it's teetering on really good. I think it's good right now, maybe even great. But his ability to take away the opponent's best player is great for a guy of his age. Only in his second season, he made it really hard for Cade Cunningham in that last preseason game. Cade got his numbers, but it wasn't easy, and that's George's job. You saw at the end of last season, there was that play against Brooklyn where he drew a flagrant foul because the guy he was guarding was just so fed up with how sticky of coverage, how he was just running everywhere with him on the defensive end, being a pest, being a menace. That's what you get from Keyshawn on that end. He's going to take away, or at least try his best to take away the opponent's best player. That's going to be his assignment on a nightly basis. So it's always great to have that. But what he's been able to do offensively, he's clearly gotten stronger. Looks like he added an inch, and based on the opening night roster, he's up to 6'9" now. Definitely added some weight from when he was drafted. His ability to use his body did it a couple of times against Detroit, just using the off arm to create space, get separation, knock down a mid range, get to the rim pretty easily against some smaller wings. That was awesome. And then the ability to move out to the 3-point line. I think that's the one element of his game that I want to be more consistent and more efficient is the outside jumper because it opens up so much for him. But I love the two-way ability, and I think it's going to fit really well in that starting lineup. Bilal Coulibaly, I think probably would have started. He started all 67 games or however many games he played last season. It was probably less than 67, honestly. But he started them all. I think it was actually 59. It doesn't matter. But Brian Keefe likes Bilal Coulibaly. Bilal Coulibaly was the first draft pick of Will Dawkins and Michael Winger. He's going to play a lot. Will he start? I don't know. Maybe at a certain point you want to start him alongside George. If that's the case, I don't know if you have enough shooting and offense between the two. You certainly have enough defense. But once Bilal comes back and transitions into things, that'll be another discussion. Again, he got surgery on that thumb. He's still recovering. It was a ligament tear, so he's still recovering. They said he'd miss maybe the first 1 to 2 weeks of the season. Keefe said he's definitely not going to be ready for opening night. We'll see about the other games, but I would assume he misses at least the first 3 or 4, and then we'll see where he's at there. Probably come off the bench early on to ease his way back into competition. And then if he plays well, maybe he starts. Who knows? But those are kind of the 3 prominent wings here. 2 other guys that I think will feature in the rotation, Corey Kispert and Cam Whitmore. Kispert, obviously, alongside Gill, the longest tenured Wizard, wasn't drafted by Dawkins and has seen his name in trade rumors. From the fans, I should say. I haven't seen anything apart from that. But he didn't have a good year last year. Pretty down shooting year, especially from the 3-point line. Certainly not where he wanted to be, and he'd be the first person to tell you, like, I'm a good 3-point shooter, right? And obviously I want to do much better than my percentages show. He was 36% from 3, which for Bilal Coulibaly would certainly be terrific. For Bub Carrington and Alex Sarr this year would be a step up. But for a guy like Corey Kispert, who 2 years ago shot 42%, the year before shot 38%, the regression down to 36%, that's the second straight season that he's regressed from the 3-point line in terms of percentages. That's not great, And so I think for Corey, the main thing is being consistent as a shooter. That's his game. That's his bread and butter. That's where he makes his mark, is being able to space the floor. Now, when it comes to other things, he's not just the shooter anymore. I actually trust when Corey Kispert puts the ball on the deck and goes to the rim. He's not going to get blocked. He shields the ball really well. He finishes around traffic really well for a guy most considered just a shooter coming into the league. So I like that. He can put the ball on the deck. I like that he's added to his offensive game. Obviously, the biggest gripe from fans and from obviously watching him is the defense. It's not great. It's never been great. But I also don't think it's a liability like it was when he first came in the league. You're not going to put him in at the end of the games for defense. That's just a dumb decision. But I do think if the defense can slightly improve and he can get up to 39, 40% from 3, that's exactly what the Wizards are paying him to do. It's a good contract, right? He's making less than $15 million for the next 4 years. He's a good player. I like Corey Kispert. I think he's a really good player off the bench. He just needs to be more efficient, especially from three, if he wants to be a guy that the Wizards want him to be and kind of need him to be to have any semblance of success this season. And then that leads me to Cam Whitmore, right? This is a guy, I think Bijan, I know Bijan Todd from Monumental loves Cam Whitmore. I've seen some ESPN guys say that they think in bold predictions that he could be the most improved player. And it makes sense. I mean, he was listed shockingly. He's 6'7". Don't make any jokes, please, when you're listening to this. He's 6'7", and he's listed at 250 pounds, which is mind blowing. I mean, to be 6'7" and to be 250 pounds and to move the way Whitmore moves. I mean, you had guys at media day saying nobody's going to get in front of him. He's like a freight train in transition. He's so fast with the ball for a guy of his size that you're not getting in front of him. The same thing with a guy like Giannis, who I'm not comparing them, but it's really hard to get in front of that. LeBron is the same way. And so if Whitmore can use that body, that frame to get downhill, to draw contact, to get to the rim, that's his game. And that'll open up the three-point shot, which I actually thought was improved in preseason. I liked what I saw from him there. So I like what Whitmore provides. I think he'll definitely be a mainstay of the rotation. I don't think he'll start right away, but I think he'll be a focal point off the bench in terms of a guy that can score. And then if the defense that I saw in preseason translates, the anticipation I saw in a couple of steals, the blocking ability that I saw to wall up defenders and to send away shots, that makes it even better. And so I think those are the five guys that I think will feature. And it'll be different when Bilal comes back. Like, does Corey or Whitmore lose their spot in the rotation among the wings? Like, that makes it tough. I also think Bilal can play the two guard, not necessarily because he can shoot, but because he's able to guard that position and because he's quick enough. So we'll see what Keefe does. It'll be a tough decision. I doubt he'll want to go to a 10-man rotation. He seems like a guy that likes 8-9-man rotations, shorter rotations than some. But certainly something to monitor at the wing position for when Bilal comes back is that decision. What is Brian Keefe going to do there? That's kind of the wings. You still have Justin Champagnie and Will Riley, who I hate that these guys, at least in my opinion, won't be in the rotation. I'm not going to harp on Champagnie too much. I'm a Champagnie truther. I've been that way if you listen to any episode of the last year plus since they've added him. He's as consistent as they come. When he starts, he's a double-double machine. A really good rebounder for the guard position / wing position. Just has a knack for finding that loose ball off misses. And a good defender. Like, he's a very solid player, and I think as the season rolls on, the injuries will unfortunately happen. Guys will get traded, bought out. He will be a part of the rotation. He's only 23, guys, by the way. A lot of people don't think he's part of the young core because he wasn't drafted. He doesn't have a high profile. People think he's older than he is. He's 20, maybe he's turned 24 since, but he's around that age, and so I'm really excited for what he can be. He's making $1.8 million this year. He's under contract for 2 more years after that. He's also a non-guaranteed deal, which is why I was a little concerned they might decide to waive him. I'm glad he made the roster. He deserved to make it. Shouldn't have even been a question of him making the roster. But the non-guarantee was definitely something I was looking at. He's on a phenomenal contract. He's a really solid player. I don't think he'll play much early on, but if they need another body, I think he'd be my first guy that I'd call upon. And then you got Will Riley, who, I mean, impressed in preseason. Let me tell you, like, I knew Will Riley would be a solid player. I really like that pick, another 3-and-D guy that Dawkins decided, we want to spend a first round pick on. And he showed out in preseason. Was okay in the first game, but had 17 points on 8 of 11 from the field against the Knicks. Just a really solid performance from him. And kind of showcased what he can do. He knocked down a 3. He was able to get to the lane. He played good, solid defense. So that's kind of what you're looking for. I just think he's a little bit, a ways away. He gained 5 pounds apparently this offseason since he was drafted. He's 6'10", apparently. The Wizards are listing him at 6'10". That's awesome to have another guy. I thought he was 6'8". At least that's what the Combine says. The Wizards say he's 6'10", 190. I think he'll definitely fill out that frame, get around 200 or above. And I think this will be a nice year for Riley to kind of sit back, maybe play some games early on with Gogo, really get stronger, and just get better as a player. The Wizards specialize, or at least they like to say they specialize in player development. The results have been there for a lot of these younger guys, especially Keyshawn George. And so if he follows a similar path, next season, Riley could be a mainstay, or I'm sure the Wizards hope he is a mainstay of the rotation. I just don't see it early on playing over guys like Whitmore or Kispert. I don't see Keefe trusting in Riley that much just yet. So that's kind of a preview of the wing position. And then the forward slash centers is pretty easy. I mean, there's only three: Alex Sarr, Marvin Bagley the third, Anthony Gill. I'll start with Gill because I think he deserves it. He's 33, veteran of this team. I think this is his sixth year with the Wizards, fifth or sixth. I think it's his sixth. But he's just that veteran. And I know a lot of guys, a lot of fans, or I should say, weren't, I don't want to say weren't too happy, but didn't understand the decision to bring him back after he was waived because they thought that a guy like Dylan Jones, who's in his early 20s, or even a guy like Branham, they definitely deserve the roster spot over him. And I said this on my last episode. I'll reiterate it here before I move on. Anthony Gill is going to probably lose every single one-on-one he plays with Dylan Jones. But what Anthony Gill provides as a mentor, as a leader, as a veteran on the floor, off the floor, in the locker room, at practice, that means so much more to the Wizards than whatever Dylan Jones could provide in garbage time when he sometimes plays. Like Anthony Gill is always the guy that waits for guys after their post game interview. Like he won't let like a guy like Alex Sarr leave the floor by himself. That's like one thing he likes to do. Apparently, he's always the first person in the building, last person out of the building at practice. He'll rebound for guys like coaches usually do. He will do as a player because he knows his role. I had a comment under my last pod. A commenter telling me a story about how when Bub Carrington's dad died, Anthony Gill was there to drive him home. Anthony Gill was there to be that guy to support Bub because he played after that. Again, that's what that comment said, and if that's true, it just speaks volumes to the leader and the person Gill is. So that's why I'm happy he's on this team. I don't care about what he can do production-wise because he's probably not going to play a lot. But I like that the Wizards have this 15th man on the team that can be a mentor to all of these younger guys kind of trying to find their way and try to, figure out and learn how to be a pro, how to be an NBA player. And so I really like that Gill made this roster. You obviously have Marvin Bagley to back up Sarr. He was phenomenal in the preseason. Was good in his first stint in Washington at 18-11 as starter against the Knicks in the second preseason game. I can't say enough good things about Marvin, so I'm excited about him backing up Sarr. Then you got Sarr. Save the best for last. I think I've been on this. I think Keyshawn George has the potential to be the best player of this young core, but I'm not. I'm bullish on Sarr. I'm not going to move off the fact that he has the most potential still. I'm not going to move off the fact that his ability to move the way he does at 7'1", now 236, by the way. He was 224 at the beginning of last year. He's listed at 236, so that's a nice little improvement for a guy that definitely needed to bulk up and add some weight. To be able to move like he does at 7'1", the guard skills he has to move in transition, the dribble moves he has at 7'1", his ability to space the floor, which needs to be more efficient, certainly, but his ability to knock down the three, all those things considered offensively, make him a weapon on that end. And then you factor in the rim protection, which was phenomenal, by the way, in the preseason and was good last season. All of that together, and I'm bullish on him. I think he can be so good in this league, and I think in year two, people are going to start to see that. If you watched any preseason, Sarr was bodying guys down low. Again, he had a really strong finish over Mamukelashvili against Toronto. His rebounding, he was near double figures and would have definitely surpassed that had he played full games in the preseason. So I like where Sarr is at. I think he is going to be very good this season. I think it'll definitely be a better season than last year. So that's kind of the round out of the roster, who I think kind of plays and who doesn't. Again, this isn't rocket science based on what we saw from the starters against Toronto and against Detroit when the team was fully healthy. In the preseason, it was Bub Carrington, CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, Keyshawn George, and Alex Sarr. I would assume those are the starting five. Obviously, I don't know if Bub will play. If he doesn't, then maybe you throw in Trey Johnson as your other guard. Like I said, CJ is more than capable of being an on-ball guy. So that's certainly something that I could see, in the meantime while Bub is out. But I think fully healthy, those are your starters. And then in terms of the rotation, Trey Johnson as that guard off the bench, Corey Kispert, Cam Whitmore, and Marvin Bagley the third. I think those are your four guys off the bench When Bilal comes back, it makes it a little tough. Do you go 10 deep? If you don't and you keep the 9-man rotation and put Bilal back in, who comes out? Is it Kispert? Is it Whitmore? Is it even Trey Johnson, which I think would be dumb, but maybe it is. Or maybe you even start Bilal and you move a guy like Middleton or George to the bench. Like there's definitely some moving pieces, but I think those 9 or 10 guys when Bilal comes back, I think that's kind of your rotation for the time being, and that's kind of a rundown of the starters, the rotation, and how much I think some guys will play on this team. You obviously have Tristan Vukcevic as a two-way guy alongside Jameer Watkins, their draft pick this past season, and Sharif Cooper, who they recently signed. You have a guard, you have a wing, you have a center/forward. I like that mix-up, and if they need to call some guy up, I think it's a max still of 50 games for G League guys. So they'll play a decent bit with the go-go. They'll feature in sometimes. Like unfortunately, the Wizards have an injury at center. I'm sure Vukcevic will be up there with the NBA squad because he played a lot in preseason. He's obviously a capable NBA forward and center, especially offensively. So those are the two-way guys. That's the 18-man roster for opening night for the Wizards. Not going to jump off the page. Not going to win a lot of games. But I certainly think this is the best roster they've had in these 3 years of the rebuild. I think the vets are better. Like I like McCollum and Middleton and Bagley better than I do, obviously Gallinari and Muscala, but even better than I did with Poole and Kuzma, because those aren't guys that are going to ball hog. They're not guys that are going to chuck up unnecessary shots. They let the game come to them. They're able to, knock down shots efficiently, and they're not going to take away too many opportunities, too many minutes from the young guys, which I think fans got a little restless and annoyed with, especially with Kuzma, but even Poole at times, just their usage, the amount of shots and the amount that they did on offense. I think Middleton and Bagley and McCollum complement this young core a lot better than those guys did. So certainly interesting. Some likely go-go guys, Kaderi Richmond, Alondes Williams, Scala BCA, Sean Gilbert, Jonathan Pierre, Okola Gak. Those are all guys that were signed to Exhibit 10s, then waived. They'll get a bonus if they sign with Go-Go, which I would assume they do. And so you'll see, if you're a Go-Go guy, you'll see a lot of them. Injuries, real quick, like I mentioned, Bilal will probably return from that thumb injury a week or two into the regular season. AJ Johnson had a calf injury in camp and preseason. He will be ready for the opener, Keefe said today. And then for Bob Carrington, Keefe said they'll wait and see. They'll have to see if he'll be healthy. So I don't know if that is a good indication of him playing. He's practiced, I've seen the last couple of days, but we'll see. I'm sure they'll be very cautious with their young starting point guard. So that's kind of a rundown of what to expect, I guess, entering Milwaukee. The Wizards' schedule is tough. And I'll say this, I think most games for the Wizards seem tough because they're going to be a bottom 3 team. Unless they're playing the Nets or the Jazz or maybe a team like the Hornets. I don't see many games where, you're a Wizards fan and you're looking at the schedule this team realistically has a shot to win. And if they did win, I wouldn't be surprised. They'll have some surprise wins like they did at Detroit and at Denver last year. I don't think that, would be surprising to many, but if you're realistically just looking at the Wizards schedule, and you're kind of trying to map out any semblance of wins from the first couple of games, even weeks, it's going to be tough, right? They had multiple 17-game losing streaks last season. They're not immune to going on these really bad starts. I think they were 3-20 or 4-20 to begin last year. I know there was definitely some consideration or some belief that they could set the record for the worst team in the league. I actually think they might have started 2-20 last year because if I'm not mistaken, they were 2-2 or 2-3, and then they lost the 17 in a row. Doesn't matter. But season opener Wednesday, 8 p.m. against the Milwaukee Bucks on the road. Chris Middleton returns to Milwaukee. The Wizards will obviously be facing Kyle Kuzma. Even Ryan Rollins' revenge game for him after the team cut him. I would assume the Wizards lose. I don't know if they'll get routed, but they'll probably lose by a lot. I think their season opener last year at home against Boston, they played honestly pretty well, way better than I thought, but still lost by a decent bit. This is probably going to be another game where Giannis gets a triple-double because the Wizards historically can't stop him. Most teams can't. And so I would assume this is the start of the season is a loss. If they won, I'd be shocked. I'd be very shocked if the Wizards won this game. I'd be shocked if they won the second game at Dallas on Friday. And that's tough. Obviously, no Kyrie, but they have Cooper Flag. Whether they deserve to have him or not, they do. They have Anthony Davis. They have a really good team playing against former Wizard Daniel Gafford. I would assume the Wizards drop that. You come home for the home opener against Charlotte on Sunday. I think Charlotte's a better team than they had been in years past. Miller, LaMelo Ball, they're good, right? They're good. They have Concanipo now. I like what Charles Lee is doing there. The Wizards could win this game. They very well could. I don't think they will. So that's Charlotte. Then you're home against Philadelphia, and whether Embiid plays or not, they're still a much better team than the Wizards. I don't know if George will be ready for the start of the season. But I mean, that's another tough game. Then you're at Oklahoma City. We know how that will go. You're home against Orlando. We know how that will go. You're at New York. You're at Boston. Then you're home against Cleveland and Dallas. Those are all tough games. At Detroit, at Houston, then versus Brooklyn. So if you look at the Wizards' first couple games, I mean, let me just count here. If I'm going the first 15 games of the season, right? You have what Dallas didn't make the playoffs last year. That's 1, 2, 3 teams right there that didn't make the playoffs. Um, but realistically, other than that, like most of the teams they're playing either made the playoffs last year, or the reason they didn't make the playoffs last year, mainly Dallas and Philadelphia, is because of injuries and obviously also because Dallas made the decision to trade Luka mid-season, but then AD got hurt. So I realistically don't even think Dallas and Philly should be considered these like non-playoff teams. What I'm trying to get at here through the rambling is that the Wizards' schedule is really hard. Their first game against the team that I realistically think, okay, they should probably win this one, doesn't come until November 16th at home against Brooklyn. That's a game I think they could very realistically win. Apart from that, like if they maybe beat Charlotte, yeah, but I'd be surprised if they won any of the other games, and that's just because a lot of the teams they're playing are good, and it's also because the Wizards are not. So they have a really tough schedule. It's not like it helps their case, but um, certainly something to monitor entering the beginning of the season. If they do get off to another slow start, will it be because the team really is that bad still, or will it be because the schedule is just really difficult? And I'll say this, like I think the main goal for the season is a couple things, and winning certainly isn't one of them. It's developing talent. You have a plethora of first round picks on this team, a lot that you drafted, right? That you want to develop. You obviously have this past rookie class of Jameer Watkins, Trey Johnson, and Will Riley that you want to develop. Bob Carrington, AJ Johnson, Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr from last year, Bilal Coulibaly, Cam Whitmore from the year before. You have Tristan Vukcevic on a two-way spot. You're going to want to develop a lot of those guys. You're going to want to see, notable improvement from them, notable production from them. Can Bob Carrington prove to be your everyday starting point guard? Can a guy like Trey Johnson showcase why he was drafted so high? Is the shooting going to translate? Is the scoring going to translate, this season from college to the NBA? Can Alex Sarr actually play like a center like he did in preseason? Is the outside shot going to be there? Is he getting inside? Is he rebounding? Is he defending the rim? Is Keyshawn George becoming this two-way demon like that you hope he can be? Does AJ Johnson showcase something? That's what the Wizards are looking for, on top of the fact that, and I'll remind you so much throughout the season, so you better get it in your head now. This is the last year of protections from that New York Knicks pick. It's top 8 protected this season, and if it doesn't convey, it's a second round pick in 2026 and 2027 that goes from Washington to New York. The Wizards finishing bottom 4 with a bottom 4 record this year guarantees they cannot fall outside the top 8. Whether they get hosed by the lottery again or not and they fall to 8, doesn't matter if they have a bottom 4 record, they clinch a top 8 pick, and they don't have to worry about losing their pick in a really good draft class dominated by guys like Peterson and the Boozers and Ibanza and a lot of franchise-altering talents. Nate Ament too. The Wizards want that pick. They think that this year might be the last year that they're really bad, that they lose a lot. And then after that, they can kind of move forward and say, let's go. Maybe we're not going to contend now, but we should at least be competing for a play-in spot or for one of the last couple seeds in the East. And then hopefully down the line, like OKC did, it's like, okay, we're building. We have a solid season, barely missed the playoffs, and then bang, we're the 1 seed. Next year, again, we're the best team in the NBA. We win a title. I think that's the gradual improvement that the Wizards are looking for. So this will probably be the last year where losing is accepted at the rate that it is. But apart from that, I think the number one thing is obviously development, and right alongside that is losing enough to have a bottom four record and keeping that pick. So if you're coming into this pod and you're like, oh great, Greg's going to talk about how good this team's going to be, how they could push the play in. No, they're not. I guess this is also a good time to give my predictions. Um, Last year, I'll pat myself on the back if no one else will. I predicted the Wizards would go 18-64. A lot of factors went into that. Who would get traded at the deadline? I thought Kuz would certainly, and he did. Who wouldn't? I thought Poole would probably stay at least through that season. He did. And then you had just the overwhelming youth on this team to where I was like, maybe they'll improve a little bit, but not a lot. And obviously, from 15 wins to 18 wins is 3-win improvement. Hooray! But I was spot on. They went 18-64 thanks to Bub Carrington in that final game at Miami, hitting the buzzer beater to save my prediction. But obviously, I'm going for a streak. Um, I'm not going to go out. I posted this today because I knew I was going to record this later, just to see a gauge of what Wizards fans think. I asked what you thought the team's record would be this season. It's clear that some people are more optimistic than others. Some people had them at 30 plus wins, which I, with all due respect, think is pretty absurd. Some people had them underneath 15 wins, which I also think is pretty crazy. I have them somewhere in between, but it's not like I have them being that much better. I have a 1-win improvement. I have them at 19-63. I think that this team is better than they used to be last year and the year before. I think the veterans, like I mentioned, are the best collection and mix of veterans for this team, but I still don't see that many wins. And I think I gave them the benefit of the doubt because the East is very injured. In years past, last year they wouldn't have been able to beat a team like Indiana without Halliburton. They lose Miles Turner. Maybe they can win those games if Philadelphia is injured at times. Maybe they can win those games. You obviously have teams like Boston without Tatum. They lost a lot of their big names like Porzingis. That's another area. Maybe the Wizards could take a game from them. There's all of these injuries in the East. I think they're going to get stormed through by the West, maybe with the exception of Utah. And maybe in the East they can beat a team like Brooklyn, which I think they might have swept Brooklyn last year, if I'm correct. They played very well against Brooklyn, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I think those are definitely wins, but that's only, 5 games out of the season that they'll play the Jazz and the Nets. You're going to have to find me more than 15 wins from the rest of the league. And I just can't find that. I can't get there, even in an injured Eastern Conference. So I have a 19 wins, 63 losses. That'll firmly put them in the bottom four. I think that if they are accelerated this year and they're winning way too much, they're not going to be upset, but I think they'll call off the dogs a little bit. I think that they will certainly be monitoring their positioning in terms of their record among the bottom barrel of the league. But that's what I think. I think that the top 8 projected pick, factored in with the young roster still trying to grow, all of those elements to me scream maybe they are a little bit better than last year, but I just can't get there beyond 20 wins. And maybe they do, and if they do, then great. Good for them. Good for Brian Keefe. It's another year of steady growth and improvement. But for me, I can't get there. I'm at 19-63. We'll see if I'm right again. I could very well be wrong. Another thing that you got to monitor this year is the trade deadline. As teams have to do when they're rebuilding, right? Is monitoring the trade deadline. The Wizards certainly have a lot of pieces this year to monitor, like they have the last couple years. And Will Dawkins has been active. Maybe not as active with trading guys like Shamet and Tyus Jones than people would like. But he traded Kuzma last year. He traded Poole this offseason. He obviously traded guys like Gallinari and Muscala before the deadline a couple years ago. He's made deadline deals that were really smart and strategic, like getting that Memphis pick back for basically taking on Marcus Smart and waiving him, taking on that most of the buyout, and he got basically Will Riley for free, for cash. You know what I mean? You give up Johnny Davis and Marvin Bagley, but then brought Marvin Bagley back. It's just he's been really good at this thing they call GMing in the NBA so far. The production and the results from the guys in terms of wins hasn't been there, but I've liked what Dawkins has done. And so I think it'll be another active trade deadline for him and the team. He certainly has some pieces to work with. McCollum and Middleton are kind of in that same realm. McCollum a little over $30 million this year that he's making. Middleton around $34 million. They're both 34 years old, but they're expiring deals. So I think if you want to believe they could dump them, the expiring deals, the fact that they still have something left in the tank, which I think in preseason you clearly saw and you'll see in the regular season, maybe a contender's like, we just have the space. I think it'll be tough considering maybe the Wizards don't want to take back bloated salary beyond this year. Like they traded Jordan Poole for that reason to clear the books. But I think maybe a team could be enticed enough if they play well enough. I would say there's a greater than 50% chance that both play out the rest of the season on the Wizards. I'd say there's definitely a greater than like 60, 70% chance that they aren't traded just because I think it's really tough to move contracts of that size for players at the stage of their career that they're at. But we've seen crazier. Will Dawkins is good at his job. So that's two I'm looking at. Yeah, Bagley, 26 years old. If he plays the way he did in preseason, he'll have suitors. He's on a veteran minimum. It's an expiring 1 year deal. It seems like a really solid backup option if you are a contending team. I think that would be a nice little, not even a gamble, but like, what do you have to lose? Not making a lot of money, expiring, plays well, could be a backup. I think that would be, another guy I could see getting dealt. Champagnie, great contract, great player. Probably won't play enough for the Wizards. I don't want to trade him because you guys know I like Champagnie and he's on a great contract, but I could very well see a contender saying we could really use a guy like him. He's a really, really, solid player and he's not making a lot of money, so we can make it work, numbers wise. And then Kispert, obviously, at 25 years old. He was drafted by the old regime. He's a floor spacer when he's at his best. Solid in terms of being a cutter. Really good at finishing around the rim compared to when he got in the league. He's on a good contract at around $13 million for the next couple of years. Those are the trade pieces that they'll have to work with. In years past, they've made moves. They haven't traded all these guys that I'm mentioning, but they've traded some. And so this year, I don't expect to be any different. Might be a little harder with veterans like Middleton and McCollum making the money they are, but certainly something to monitor entering the season. Yeah, I mean, apart from that, I'm trying to look at my notes for the pod, and I don't know how much else I have. I broke down the roster and kind of the rotations, the starters, who I expect to see a lot in the beginning of the season, who I don't expect to get a lot of minutes. Go guys, injuries, trade pieces, my record prediction. I think I've kind of covered all I want to cover. I think it's going to be probably another slow start to the season record wise. I'm looking for Trey Johnson to kind of be that guy. Not right away, right? But I would like to kind of have him give Wizards fans or myself something to be excited about and be like, okay, like he clearly has it. It might take him a little time. Same with Will Riley at some point in the season. Um, I think Alex Sarr is going to be a lot better than some people think, and that's kind of the guy I'm bullish on. Keyshawn George is going to be awesome as well on both ends. But yeah, I think this is the best roster they've had of this rebuild. That does not mean they're good. I have them at 19 and 63 for a reason. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the season. Hopefully, a lot of the young guys get run like they did last year, and we'll be here every step of the way. Like I mentioned, I can't even tell you the last time I missed a Wizards game. So if you're not somehow following me on Twitter, it's at Greg Finberg. Throughout the season, I will be posting keys to the game like I do before all 82 games. I will be live tweeting as I watch through all 82 games. For the pods, I don't know if I'm going to do a reaction pod around 20 to 25 minutes after every game, or if I'm just going to clump a couple together like I've been doing in the past. Whatever you think is best. If you want a reaction after every single game, just DM me, let me know, comment. Because if that's actually what you want, then I'll definitely try to make that happen. But that's kind of the content schedule for this season. So follow me on Twitter at Greg Finberg if you want live tweeting and someone that covers this team through and throughout the ups and downs of the season. I'll be there every step of the way. The pods will still be here on YouTube, on Apple, Spotify, and all that. But certainly excited for the season. It's been a long off season, a lot of chatter about can this team improve a little bit. It's going to be another long year, but they got a good young core, and now I think it's time to prove that. It's time for Brian Keefe to put out a little bit of a better product on the floor, especially defensively. You can't be in the bottom three again in defense, I think. But also excited to see what they can do offensively. Excited for the rookies. Excited for the second-year guys. Excited to see if Bilal Coulibaly and Ken Whitmore can really prove to this front office entering a contract year or a contract extension year that they have what it takes to trust them with a lot of guaranteed money. So I'm really excited for the season. I'll be here every step of the way. I appreciate all the support, as always, for all you guys that listen, follow, comment, etc. So thanks for staying with me. Thanks for being with me. Excited for the year. Excited for you guys to be along with me. It's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you on Wednesday night. Go Wiz.